I remember the exact moment the idea took root. We were standing in the school gymnasium, the air thick with the smell of floor wax and teenage awkwardness. Brendan Riley, the new kid in town, leaned over to me while some health official droned on about safe practices. He saw the Queen patch on my denim jacket, the one with Freddie Mercury striking that iconic pose. He smirked, his breath smelling like cheap bubble gum. "Still listening to that dead queer?" he whispered, his voice dripping with the kind of casual cruelty only a 16-year-old can master. "My dad says guys like that get what they deserve." I just clenched my fists in my pockets. For months, this kid had been walking all over me and my best friend, Leo. He'd stolen from us, lied to us, and made us feel like fools. But that comment? That was different. That was personal. He thought he was untouchable, wrapped up in his family's self-righteous piety. He didn't know that the very thing he was mocking, this assembly, this cause, was about to become the instrument of his downfall. He didn't know that in a few days, a single white envelope would dismantle his perfect little world.
This was back in '93. The world felt smaller then, especially in our corner of Ohio. There was no internet, no smartphones. Our universe was what we could see from the water tower on Miller's Ridge. For me and Leo, our escape was a new frontier, PC gaming. It was our secret club. We weren't jocks or preps. We were the guys who spent our allowances on 3.5-inch floppy disks and mail-order catalogs from California. Getting games was a mission. You couldn't just download them. We'd mow lawns and bag groceries for weeks to save up enough to send a money order for a title like The Secret of Monkey Island or Wing Commander. The boxes were like sacred texts to us, filled with thick manuals, cloth maps, and those weird red-tinted code wheels for copy protection. Each game was an investment, a piece of a world far away from our rusting town. We were a two-man syndicate, trading games back and forth, carefully copying the discs for ourselves so the originals stayed pristine. That was our thing. My dad, a mechanic who spent his life under the hoods of Ford trucks, never really got it. "Why are you staring at that little screen, Jack?" he'd ask, wiping grease from his hands. "There's a whole world out there." He wasn't wrong, but the world on that screen felt more manageable. The rules were clear. The good guys usually won. Leo was the tech genius of our operation. His dad was an engineer and they had the best setup, a 486 DX2 with a real sound card. My machine was a clunky 386 I'd pieced together from spare parts. Leo could figure anything out, from memory conflicts to tricky copy protection schemes. I was the heart, I guess. I was the one who fell in love with the stories. And I loved Queen. My uncle had given me a copy of A Night at the Opera on vinyl when I was 10, and it blew my world open. Freddie's voice was defiant, powerful. He was an outsider who built the kingdom. When he died from AIDS a couple of years earlier, it hit me hard. It wasn't just about the music, it was the injustice of it all. So when kids like Brendan used his memory as a punchline, it felt like they were spitting on something sacred.
Brendan Riley rolled into our town that fall like a bad weather front. His family had money, or at least they acted like it. His dad was a deacon at the big Baptist church on the east side of town, the kind of place where they preached fire and brimstone and judged you by the shine on your Sunday shoes. Brendan walked around with an air of inherited superiority, wearing clean new sneakers, while the rest of us had worn-out Nikes. He found out about our gaming club pretty quickly. One day in the lunchroom, he sat down at our table, uninvited. "Heard you guys are into computer games?" he said, not as a question, but as a statement. "My uncle works for a software distributor. He gets me everything, for free. Leo and I exchanged a look. It sounded too good to be true. We've got Doom 2, I said, a little boastfully. It was our crown jewel. We'd pooled our money for 2 months to get it. Brandon waved a dismissive hand. Old news. My uncle has a beta version of a game you've never even heard of. He leaned in, conspiratorial. Look, I can get you copies of anything. All I ask is you let me borrow some of your originals to see what I'm missing. It was a siren song, the promise of an endless library of games, a treasure trove we could only dream of. Against our better judgment, we agreed. Our first trade was Sam and Max hit the road. We handed him our pristine boxed copy. He promised to have it back in a day, along with a copy of a hot new flight simulator. He returned our game 2 days later, the box slightly crushed. Sorry, it was in my backpack, he mumbled. He handed us a stack of unlabeled floppies. Here you go, enjoy. We spent that whole evening in Leo's basement, our hearts pounding with anticipation. We fed the first disk into the drive. The computer whirred. Then a brutal, unforgiving message flashed on the screen. Data error, reading drive A. We tried the next disk. Same thing. And the next. They were all corrupted. Duds. When we confronted him the next day, he just shrugged. Weird. They worked on my machine. Maybe your drive is cheap. It was the first of many excuses. For 2 months, the cycle repeated. We lend him a perfectly good original game. He'd return it with a scuffed manual or a cracked case. And in exchange, we'd get a stack of useless floppies. The Settlers, Day of the Tentacle, XCOM. He got to play them all. We got nothing but frustration and a growing pile of corrupted plastic. He was playing us, and he knew it. The final straw came in November. We'd held back Doom 2, our most prized possession. But Brendan was relentless. He swore on his mother's Bible that his uncle had just sent him a brand new disc duplicator, and this time it would be perfect. He wanted to borrow Doom 2 just for one night. Like idiots, we caved. He brought it back the next day during lunch. He didn't even bother putting it in a bag. He just tossed the box on our table. There was a dark, circular stain on the front, a coffee ring, right over the demon's face. My stomach dropped. Here you go, he said, smiling that smug smile. He dropped a single floppy disk next to it. Got that copy for you. Leo picked up the disc. It had a crack running right through the metal shutter. It was garbage. A prop. I looked at the stain on the box, then at Brendan's face. Something inside me snapped. All the frustration, all the humiliation. It all boiled over. You've been lying to us this whole time, I said, my voice low and shaken. You never had any games. You just wanted ours. Brendan's smile vanished. He leaned across the table. So what if I did? What are you gonna do about it, Freddy? You gonna cry? That was it. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the linoleum. The whole cafeteria quieted down. For a second, I thought about hitting him, but I knew where that would lead. I'd get suspended, he'd play the victim, and his dad would probably call the school board. He'd win again. I just grabbed our ruined game and walked away, Leo right behind me. We didn't say anything. We just sat in the library for the rest of lunch, the silence thick with failure. We'd been played for fools, and there was nothing we could do. Then came the mandatory school assembly a week later. The local health foundation came to talk about the AIDS epidemic. It was a somber affair. They showed us videos, passed out pamphlets. At the end, on a table by the exit, There was a stack of flyers and small bowls filled with free condoms in discreet wrappers, each bearing the foundation's logo. As we were filing out, I saw Brendan up ahead. He nudged his friend, pointed at the table, and made a limp-wristed gesture before laughing. It was the same sneer, the same casual disdain. And then, looking at the logo on those flyers, it all clicked. The bully, the homophobic jokes, the self-righteous family, the Foundation's official letterhead, it was a perfect storm. I turned to Leo. I said, "Grab some of those flyers and a handful of the condoms." He looked at me, confused. "What for?" "For Brendan," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "We're gonna give him a little education."
That Saturday, we met in Leo's basement. It was our war room. His dad was out for the day, and his mom was upstairs, oblivious. We laid out our arsenal on the stained ping pong table. The flyers, the condoms, and the centerpiece of our plan, Leo's dad's brand new Hewlett-Packard DeskJet printer. It was a marvel of modern technology, capable of printing in what was then a mind-blowing 300 DPI. "First, we need the logo," Leo said, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of the mission. He carefully placed one of the Foundation's flyers on his flatbed scanner, another piece of exotic tech. The machine hummed to life, its bright light passing over the paper like a CIA document scanner in a spy movie. A few minutes later, a surprisingly crisp image of the Foundation's logo appeared on his monitor. It was perfect. Now for the letter. I was the writer. I wanted it to sound authentic, professional, and utterly devastating. We spent an hour workshopping the text, choosing every word with surgical precision. We didn't want it to sound like a prank. We wanted it to sound real. I typed out the final version in Microsoft Word using a clean, official-looking Times New Roman font. It read, "Dear Brendan, thank you for your confidential inquiry following our recent presentation at Northwood High School. We understand that this is a difficult and confusing time for you. Please know that our foundation is a safe and supportive space for young people who are questioning their sexuality or seeking guidance. It takes great courage to acknowledge your feelings and to be open about being homosexual. The questions you raised in your letter are common, and we want to provide you with the resources you need. Enclosed, you will find a brochure that addresses many of your concerns. We have also included several complimentary condoms. We commend you for your commitment to practicing safe sex. Remember, you are not alone. Please feel free to contact us anytime. Sincerely, the Community Health Foundation." It was a masterpiece of psychological warfare. Every line was designed to twist the knife. Confidential inquiry, courage to acknowledge your feelings, open about being homosexual. Leo formatted it perfectly, placing the logo at the top like official letterhead. We printed a copy. It looked so real it was scary. We carefully folded the letter in the flyer, tucked the condoms inside a plain white business envelope, and sealed it. The final crucial touch was the address. We didn't write Brendan Riley. That would be too easy. His mom might hand it to him unopened. No, we addressed it to Mr. and Mrs. Robert Riley, 124 Maple Drive, Northwood, Ohio. Then, in the bottom left corner, in smaller type, we put, "Attention Brendan." There was no way his father, Deacon Riley, wasn't opening a letter addressed to him from the Community Health Foundation. That afternoon, heart pounding, I rode my bike to the main post office downtown because I didn't want to use a local mailbox, just in case. I slipped the envelope into the slot. The metallic thunk echoed with finality. The missile was launched. All we could do now was wait for the explosion.
The first 2 days of the next week were quiet. Too quiet. Brendan wasn't in school on Monday or Tuesday. Leo and I tried to act normal, but every time a teacher called his name during roll call and was met with silence, we'd shoot each other a nervous glance. Had it worked, or had we miscalculated completely? The rumors started on Wednesday. We heard snippets in the hallways. Sarah Jenkins, who lived down the street from the Rileys, told her friends she'd heard shouting coming from their house all weekend. She said she saw Brendan's mom crying on the porch. On Thursday, Brendan finally showed up. He looked like a ghost. His face was pale, his eyes were red-rimmed and hollow, and he walked with his shoulders slumped, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The usual smug swagger was gone, replaced by a deep, weary shame. He looked broken. He cornered me by my locker after school. There were no insults, no bravado, just a raw, trembling fury. "It was you," he hissed, his voice cracking. "You did this." I played dumb. "Did what, Brandon?" "The letter, the foundation. They said I wrote to them, my parents, my dad. They think I'm..." He couldn't even say the word. "They took my computer. I'm grounded until I'm 30. They're making me see the pastor for counseling." He grabbed my shirt. "You told him I was gay." "We didn't tell him anything, Brendan," Leo said, appearing behind me. "We just delivered a letter." The realization dawned on his face. The shift from believing he was a victim of a bizarre mix-up to understanding he was the target of a deliberate attack. "You faked it." We didn't say a word. We just looked at him. The next morning, we were all summoned to the principal's office. Brendan was there, flanked by his parents. His father was a tall, stern man with a face like carved granite. His mother was clutching a handkerchief, her eyes puffy. They looked at us like we were vermin. Principal Thompson, a fair but tired man, sat us down. "Mr. and Mrs. Riley have made a very serious accusation," he began. Before he could finish, Brendan's dad slammed his hand on the desk. "These boys sent a vile, disgusting package to my home. They tried to corrupt my son with filth and lies." I took a deep breath. "Sir, with all due respect, we didn't lie." Everyone in the room stared at me. "For 3 months," I continued, my voice steady, "Brendan has been taking our property. He promised to trade computer games with us, but instead he just took our original copies and gave us back broken, corrupted discs. He stole from us, repeatedly." I looked directly at Brendan, and when we confronted him, he laughed in our faces. Not only that, he spent months bullying me, making homophobic jokes because of the music I like. Leo backed me up, calmly listing every game Brendan had taken, every broken promise. Brendan's parents looked at their son, a flicker of doubt in their eyes. Brendan just stared at the floor, his face burning red. He couldn't deny it. We had the evidence, a stack of useless floppies and our ruined game boxes. Principal Thompson listened patiently. When we were done, he steepled his fingers and looked at the Rileys. "Well?" Brendan's father stammered, his righteous anger deflating. My son is a good boy. He wouldn't steal." But the damage was done. The narrative had shifted. We weren't just delinquents who had played a cruel prank. We were kids who'd been cheated and bullied, and who had retaliated in the only way we knew. We got a week of detention for the fake letter, but Brendan got a month for theft and bullying. More importantly, his reputation was shattered. The story got out. He wasn't the cool, rich new kid anymore. He was a liar, a thief, and the kid whose hyper-religious parents were terrified he was gay.
He spent the rest of the year as a social ghost. We never got our games back, but we got something far more valuable. We got justice.
I think about that story sometimes, usually when I'm out in my garage tinkering with my old Chevy pickup. A Queen song will come on the classic rock station, Don't Stop Me Now, or another one bites the dust, and I'll smile. I'm 50 now, a lot of water under the bridge, a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage. That teenage drama feels like it happened in another lifetime, to another person. Was it a childish thing to do? Absolutely. Was it mean? Probably. I sometimes wonder what that letter really did to Brendan's family, what cracks it exposed that were already there. But I can't bring myself to regret it. It wasn't about the money we lost on the games. It was never really about the games. It was about a bully who thought he could take whatever he wanted and tear down anyone who was different, all while hiding behind his family's piety. We didn't throw a punch. We didn't slash his tires. We used his own prejudice, his own family's biggest fear, as a mirror. We showed him what his own brand of hatred looked like when it was aimed back at him. We beat him not with our fists, but with a scanner, a printer, and a single, well-chosen stamp. Life teaches you that most of the time, bullies don't get what's coming to them. They just grow up to be adult bullies. But every now and then, if you're smart and you're patient, you get to write your own ending. You get to mail an envelope and watch justice get delivered right to their front door. And that's a satisfaction that even 30 years later still feels pretty damn good.
Like and subscribe.